I'm looking to have a number that I consider to be the average in the state of New Hampshire. All the other kids outside of New Hampshire, except for maybe 3 districts which are down where we are, get far more support, in my opinion, than we give to our own kids. And I think that's wrong. And I think we should just, belly up to the bar and pay the bills, because that is a citizen's responsibility. And so far, we have continuously come up with excuses to not pay that bill. And it's created, in my opinion, a very negative effect and perception of Manchester. And I'm sure it hurts our ability to attract business. Let's stop it. I know we can afford it. My constituents can afford it, and I don't come from the rich side of town. Okay? The landlords that have the 3 and 4 story cheapo apartments, I may not like them. I've got them down in my ward, on the bottom of my ward, but they pay a property tax, and they make a profit on those properties. They have to pay. I know they're not going to give me any money for my reelection campaign, but that doesn't matter. You do the right thing. You pay up. We know what the number is. We can come real close to the number. So it's not a mystery as to what the goal is for the policy. And I just think we got to hit that number and compare that to what we've been talking about here. And I keep remembering when I was on the school board, we had 17,000 students. We took on $109 million in capital improvements. And we kept our class sizes down. Now, how did we do that? We've got to find out how we did that. I mean, we had an educator for a mayor. So he was a no-nonsense guy. He knew as much about the spending at the school district level, Bob Baines did, than anybody in the room. And it helped. It was to our advantage that we had a guy like that. But nonetheless, now we have 2,500 fewer students, something like that, and suddenly we can't even afford to support the fewer students than we did 10 years ago for 17,000 kids. We're doing something wrong, and one of the things we're doing wrong is we're not funding it. We stopped funding it as soon as Bob Baines left that office. In my opinion. That is an opinion, but I want to know the number that we should be thinking about.
I just want to speak to the other side of that for a minute. In the last 6 or 7 years out of my 18 years in Concord, I have seen a continual downshift from the state, so that the costs for everything, retirement, education, adequacy, just anything you can think of, they have downshifted to the towns and the cities. So that there are many towns like Barnstead, places like that, people can't even afford to live there anymore because they're so high, their taxes. It's very easy to say that we all agree that education is the most important aspect of our community. Everything stems off of education. But it's very difficult to just say, we need to raise taxes, X amount of dollars, go over the tax cap, and everybody can afford it, because that isn't the case. There are a lot of people who will lose their homes. There are a lot of people that are struggling now, and we have to think about maybe instituting some sort of a tax credit for people who make under a certain amount of money, to give them a break so they can maintain their homes, and they can, and the city can override the tax cap. But it isn't something that we can just do. It's not that easy. I know that the majority of the constituents will come to you and say, please, I understand, but please don't raise taxes any more than the tax cap allows.
I got a lot of calls from people, why didn't you vote for that 167? And I said, well, it's not high enough. I would like to have a discussion about adding teachers instead of cutting. I've spent 17 years and all I ever hear is cuts. So I'm tired of it. And now I have a vote that might have something to do with it, because I spent 14 years not having a vote, right? I was a school board member. And it was always the same. It was always excuses. We can't afford it. I think that's baloney. I mean, my ward is not a rich ward, but if you walk around, I have nice houses, I have nice areas, and in the bottom of my ward, there's a lot of tenements. But those people that live in those tenements, they're paying the bill, and the landlord is paying the property bill. So, and the landlord is not a poor man. Now, he's not going to vote for me, for sure, because I'm going to make his check that he sends bigger. Excuse me.
I think that the most important thing is making a decision that's going to pass the board.
The point I was trying to make, what I'll get to, is you only have a majority vote that will pass 165. In order to do 167 and change, you're going to get a veto. You need 10 votes. So the 167 is a chimera. As long as the mayor says, I veto it, I need 10 votes in order to get there. If we have 10 votes on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, we can fund anything that is necessary. And we're not there. I need your vote. I need Sapienza's vote. I need Katziantonis's vote. And guess what? They're there. We're there. We're at 167 and change. But we weren't at 167 and change and 10 votes last week.
We were before, I think the people came into that meeting at 167. They did. But then...
Well, it was gone real fast. Mm-hmm. And I think that the 165 crew, that third cohort you're talking about, is 3 people. 3 people.
That's right. I agree.
I'm not standing for that. I'm not going to take that lying down. And I'm going to get nasty if we end up doing that, because that is incredibly irresponsible. It's a fiscal disaster. And we've got 3 people that got elected to this board who, for some reason, think that that's the right thing to do. And I know the other 9 members don't feel that way. Or I guess it's 8 members now. But I think, you know, I want to know what the number is for the rest of the state of New Hampshire. I want to know what the rest of the kids in the state of New Hampshire get in public support for their education. I want to know that number. And I don't want to say, oh, well, I want to know the budget number. And that's a number that should be public, so people understand what the difference is between supporting public education and faking it.
You also have to understand that, and I agree with you, but you have to understand that a city like Nashua and a city like Manchester has a large Department of Public Works. They have a large police department. They have a large fire department. Small towns that may pay their teachers higher, that doesn't always work. You have to look at the whole picture. You can't just say, and we have very diverse population in the city that other towns don't have. So there's a lot of variables that go along with it. It isn't just taking a number and saying that this is what it should be and this is what it shouldn't be. So
I disagree.
that's okay.
Time we sit there and all we talk about is cutting, 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 cutting. And all we talk about is saying, I've got an 85-year-old woman that lives across the street, and she won't give up her house. She's sitting on $350,000, and she can't afford it anymore. And you say, give her a tax credit. No, we should have a program that gets her out of the house. I mean, we need to get new people to come in and occupy those houses. We can't be run by the elderly in a city. That's foolishness. I mean, if you want to go do that, you can go down to the communities outside of Orlando, and they have a lot of money.
Well, I'm 75 years old, and I consider myself basically elderly, but I want to keep my house, and I'm on a pension, so a teaching pension.